Ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese Communist Party has been meddling in Canadian politics for years, playing puppeteer from behind the Great Firewall. And chances are you haven't heard about it because, for the most part, the Canadian media has followed Justin Trudeau's lead at sweeping it under the rug. Now, look, it really shouldn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. When other countries are toying in our political system, there should be outrage. Yes, even from liberals when it involves their own side. Lord knows that many of the folks voting for the Trudeau Liberals were the same ones constantly whining about Trump and the Russian bots. As if it wasn't possible for there to be tens of millions of mega morons on Twitter, they all apparently had to be bots. That was the only logical reason for Trump to have so much support. I digress. So what are the Liberals saying about this election interference? Well, nothing, just yet. Just the sound of sweet, sweet denial, seemingly intent on transforming this whole thing into an oriental rug they can sweep the scandal under. CBC, CTV, City TV, largely silent, comfortably perched on a government-sponsored cushion. Because when they aren't getting subsidies, they're busy getting big ad campaigns for some sort of government program. Of course, we have Global News, who appears to be the one mainstream media network in Canada not afraid to bite the hand that feeds them. Today I want to walk you through what's been happening with the Liberal Party and the Chinese Communist Party, also known as the CCP. And I have to say, I don't have any political allegiances here, but I think this is a story worth being informed about. And look, it's not easy to gauge how deep this rabbit hole goes, but Trudeau's rather allergic reaction to any mention of a real investigation does tickle my curiosity. And I wonder just how deep it really goes. Let's dive in. In a startling revelation first reported by Global News in November 2022, officials from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, also known as CSIS, reportedly warned Prime Minister Justin Trudeau months earlier about a comprehensive foreign interference campaign led by none other than China. These efforts by the CCP to infiltrate and influence Canadian politics includes embedding agents into MPs' offices to sway policy decisions, corrupting former Canadian officials, and implementing aggressive campaigns to punish Canadian politicians that are in opposition to Beijing's interests. The briefings also revealed that the CCP's United Front Work Department is behind much of the political interference on Canadian soil. Global News described the United Front as mobilizing large sections of society abroad, targeting critics and ushering support for the CCP's policies. These operations, which include politicians, media, business, student and community groups, specifically aim at undermining the causes of ethnic groups, such as the Uyghurs and Tibetans, seen as poisons by the CCP. CSIS's main accusations: that China's Toronto consulate, acting as a Chinese Communist Party proxy group, orchestrated a quiet transfer of funds amounting to about $250,000 to 11 federal candidates and their campaign staff to achieve their goals. Accusations in February 2023 grew when Global News cited anonymous sources who came forward with further details of an ongoing investigation. Let's go back a few years to 2019. Just weeks prior to Canada's federal election, national security officials reportedly issued a classified warning to aides of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, signaling that Han Dong, one of their candidates and a former Ontario MPP, was allegedly part of a Chinese foreign interference network. According to these insiders, the agency had been surveilling Dong since June of 2019, and he was among those who were purportedly supported by Beijing. Intrigue grew when sources pointed out that Dong's path to candidacy followed the ouster of MP Zheng Tan in circumstances deemed suspicious. The intelligence gathered indicated a preference from Beijing for Dong over Tan, which heightened concern within the intelligence community. Despite evidence from surveillance, wiretaps, and human source reporting, all that could be heard from Trudeau's office were crickets. The Prime Minister's office seemingly did not act upon the urgent plea from CSIS officials just 48 hours before the federal election nomination deadline to rescind Dong's candidacy. CSIS was also reportedly troubled by irregularities observed in the Liberal Party's nomination process during the 2019 contest. Allegations included cases of Chinese international students with falsified addresses being bussed into the riding to vote in Dong's favor, as well as 2 busloads of senior Canadian Chinese citizens being brought in to vote for a particular candidate whose name was inscribed beneath their sleeves. So how did Prime Minister Justin Trudeau react to the CSIS warnings? Well, in a typical Trudeau style, he acted surprised, then he denied, and dodged. Despite being briefed about the matter, Trudeau remained mum about China's alleged attempted efforts to thwart Canada's election process. It wasn't until after CSIS's discoveries were made public that he admitted there may have been a teeny tiny bit of interference after all. He was quick to play defense, slamming China for playing aggressive games with Canada's democracy. The Prime Minister pledged to invest in tools and resources to help organizations such as CSIS do its job, but still stopped short of creating new laws to prevent future foreign interference in Canada's elections. With respect to Dong's oddly successful win, the Prime Minister, when pressed on the matter, presented a word salad accusing CSIS of trying to dictate who can and can't run for politics.
It is not up to unelected security officials to dictate to political parties who can or cannot run.
Instead, he expressed strong support for Dong, citing his contributions during the pandemic and his stand against discrimination targeted at the Chinese Canadian community. And it's also worth noting that Dong threatened to sue Global News over the allegations. Trudeau remained firm in his stance that the alleged foreign interference had not influenced the outcome of the 2019 election, insisting that Dong was chosen through an open process by registered Liberals in line with the party's nomination rules. It's almost like they were caught cheating, acknowledged the game was rigged, but didn't care. And if you disagree, you're racist. Now let's go to the year 2021. We're in the fourth wave of COVID, and everybody is wondering why Justin Bieber likes peaches so much and where else he would get them other than from Georgia. It's in that year that the Liberals decide to pull a snap election, with hopes that Trudeau's anti-COVID policies would be favorable enough to send his party into a majority government. After spending the summer campaigning to the tune of cheers and boos, the Liberal Party successfully made the 2021 election the most costly in Canadian history, to the tune of around $600 million. And they ended up getting elected in just 3 more districts than they started out with. But aside from pissing Canadians off with an unchanged political landscape 2 years ahead of schedule, it turns out that the Liberals perhaps got some help from Xi Jinping yet again. CSIS reports, this time seen by the Globe and Mail, revealed that once again a CCP-orchestrated mission infiltrated Canadian politics. The campaign allegedly had 2 objectives. Firstly, ensuring that a minority Liberal government once again would take the helm in Ottawa, and secondly, that the unfavorable Conservative candidates wouldn't get re-elected. The classified reports revealed that China's former consul general in Vancouver, Tong Xiaoling, had close ties to the CCP's United Front. And how did they know? Well, she bragged about it in 2021, how she successfully helped to defeat 2 Conservative MPs while making discreet and subtle efforts to persuade Chinese Canadians to vote for the Liberals. After MP Kenny Chiu, who was vocally critical of the CCP's crackdown on Hong Kong in 2021, lost to Liberal candidate Parm Bains, Tong patted herself on the back, boasting that Chiu's loss proved their strategy and tactics were good and contributed to achieving their goals while still adhering to the local political customs in a clever way. So why go through all that work to ensure that a party headed by a former drama teacher turned prime minister remains at the reins? Well, because according to one Chinese consular official, Beijing likes it when the parties in parliament are fighting with each other. Whereas if there's a majority, the party in power can easily implement policies that do not favor China, such as the Conservatives, which were deemed too critical of China and could potentially follow in the footsteps of former US President Donald Trump, who banned Chinese students from attending certain universities. 10 days after the Globe's accusations surfaced related to the 2021 election, a report was released by a panel of senior public servants led by Morris Rosenberg. The report, commissioned under the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol, was tasked with identifying the effectiveness of the government to tackle threats to the election. It ruled that the efforts to meddle did not affect the outcome of the vote. The problem? Well, Rosenberg is a former CEO of the Trudeau Foundation, which he led from 2014 to 2018. So we've all been in school before where we have that one lazy teacher who lets the students mark each other's quizzes. And you're in that classroom and you look next to you, your best friend is the one you have to hand your quiz to get graded. Well, we all know how that's going to end. Yet, on the same day the report was released, another leak was reported by the Globe. An anonymous national security source reportedly leaked to the Globe and Mail that intelligence officials had evidence that Chinese billionaire Zhang Bin, who's also linked to the CCP, was to donate a sum of money to the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation ahead of the 2015 federal election. Now, just when you thought you couldn't say conflict of interest fast enough, it turns out that Mr. Rosenberg, who was also the former Deputy Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, was involved in facilitating a controversial $200,000 donation from Bin Zhang. Quickly deploying all efforts towards damage control, the Trudeau Foundation quickly announced it would be returning the entirety of the $200,000 to its rightful owner, 6 years after receiving the donation. Trudeau would later deny knowledge of Zhang's donation, while the growing public distaste led to the entirety of the Trudeau Foundation's 18-member board, as well as the CEO, resigning all at once. As these allegations threatened Trudeau's hold on power, he made a decision. On March 15th of this year, he commissioned a probe on interference in the 2021 election to protect the integrity of Canada's democracy. Who would lead this investigation? Well, it would be former Governor General David Johnston. Did we mention that Johnston is also a longtime family friend of the Trudeaus and a member of the Trudeau Foundation? Which is clearly a conflict of interest, yet again.
That's a conflict of interest.
But nothing a few Instagram selfies couldn't overshadow. Sarcasm aside and giving Johnston the benefit of the doubt, what did his special probe uncover? Was there or wasn't there election interference by China? 2 months later, Johnston published his findings. He concluded that the Liberal government didn't knowingly ignore intelligence reports and that the reports from Global News and The Globe were misconstrued in a broader context. He then told Canadians that intelligence information doesn't suggest any of the federal candidates actually received any funding from the CCP. He even went as far as to throw cold water on the Globe and Mail's report that China preferred a minority Liberal government in 2021. More importantly, Johnston immediately rushed to extinguish calls for a public inquiry, because according to him, CSIS reports contain top secret information that Canadians' prying eyes mustn't see.
Being kept confidential.
And of course, Trudeau, sporting a smile, was quick to abide by Johnston's recommendation to forego holding a public inquiry on China's meddling in Canadian politics because, well, his explanation was a classic Trudeau dodgeball word salad yet again.
I think it's a really important and great thing that Canadians are so interested in ensuring that our principles of democracy and our practice of democracy.
The opposition, on the other hand, says Johnston should just step out of the way and let someone who isn't Justin's ski buddy and cottage neighbor lead an independent public probe into the allegations.
David Johnston does not have any credibility. He should get out of the way and allow for a full public inquiry.
Now, here's where things get heated. It appears that the appointment of Johnston was the final straw that broke the camel's back when it comes to the NDP's unwavering bromance with Justin Trudeau. Jagmeet Singh came out and said that Johnston's so-called independent report may have been biased, and as such, the former Governor General should resign. It appeared that the heat from the opposition became too much for Johnston. He then hired a crisis communication firm, of course expensed to the Canadian taxpayer. He then scribbled how there was no interference on the back of a napkin, blah, 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 called it the final report, and then resigned. How are Canadians feeling about Trudeau's job on tackling foreign interference? Well, according to a June Nanos poll, nearly half of the survey's respondents gave the Prime Minister a failing grade in handling the issue, whilst only 14% said he did a good job. And in terms of vote projections, out of 24 nationwide polls conducted since March 1st, 2023, just 2 have suggested a Liberal win in the next election, with the other 22 polls suggesting a Conservative win. The latest poll suggests that the Conservatives win by a 7-seat margin. Now look, Canadians are not known for being very politically active, and quite frankly, they are more likely to sit in their house and make snarky comments about their neighbors who actually go out there and get upset about these sorts of things. So when it comes to the next election, do I think that this foreign interference is going to play much of a role? No, I don't, because it looks like what exactly is going to happen is what has happened so far, which is nothing. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think that this should be a bigger deal? Do you think that it happens on both sides? What are your thoughts on all of this foreign interference in our elections? If you enjoyed this video, please do me a big favor, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I love you all. So guys, we just recently launched this channel and we noticed that 99.9% of our viewers are not subscribed. So if you enjoyed this video, we need your help in growing this channel. By subscribing, that would help us keep the lights on and make sure that our crews have jobs in these uncertain times. So please hit that subscribe button and we promise to make more quality videos that I'm sure you're going to love.